and welcome to Harlem Sculpture Gardens. We're in the studio today with artist Reuben Sinha. Reuben, thank you so very much for coming out today.
Thank you, for doing all this, for putting all this together. It's a lot of work, and I really, really do appreciate all your efforts and what you've done. So yeah,
Thank you.
thank you.
Thank you. And so we have Reuben in the studio so we can learn a little bit more about his artistic practice as well as the installation that he is preparing for Harlem Sculpture Garden. So, Reuben, why don't you tell us a little bit about your background? What made
Sure.
you decide to become a sculptor?
Okay. So I have been doing art my whole life. Right after college, I went to the Art Students League where I learned how to paint in a very classical, realistic style, and of course, human anatomy as well. Since then, I've been involved in the community, in the arts, and I've also been a teacher, a New York City public school teacher. I wanted to teach high school, and first I taught up in the Bronx for several years, and then in East Harlem. And I just recently retired so that I could focus back on my own artistic practice. So as an artist, I work in two different media all the time. One is painting, which I do with wax. That's called encaustics.
Yes.
And the last decade, I've been exploring colors by themselves. For instance, one color that I had been exploring was brown, and that happened when Trump got elected. I was still teaching,
Okay.
and a lot of my students in East Harlem, Latino and of African descent, were really scared and had questions. Will I be, thrown over the wall or sent back, or what's going to happen to me? And they felt like they were total outsiders, which I can understand. And so the series began as an exploration of their skin tones and
Okay.
the beauty that these kids are. And it's just grown from there more and more and more. I'm still sort of continuing it. My second half of my work is in ceramics. I make ceramic vessels along with making public art. My only objective in public art is to make something that will bring joy and pride to a community. So the last few pieces I've done, two pieces, this is my third, have been figurative. It's a style of hand building that I've developed on my own, and I try to make them figurative while also look like natural rock formations.
Gotcha.
And as figurative pieces, this piece has a lot of movement and fluidity, almost like a person
Yes.
dancing.
Yes.
Yeah. So that was, I guess, the key there.
But that was a beautiful explanation.
Oh, thank you.
I didn't know, how you began all of this, recently because of the Trump era. And, hearing young people talk about it,
Yeah.
is very important because their opinion does matter, and oftentimes people ignore
Right,
their
right.
opinions. And so to hear that was very touching,
Yeah.
for me, and then how you incorporated them. And just by the way, I'm a Bronx girl. I was born and raised in
You
the
are.
Bronx, and I worked for 10 years in East Harlem
You did too.
too.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I do understand the community, the people. So that's
Right.
really, really beautiful what you're doing. And I appreciate that very much.
Yeah.
You also didn't share that for several years you ran yourself, sort of a festival in
Right. I did.
Harlem.
Right.
And why don't you tell us a little bit
Sure.
about
And
that?
that also has a starting story in politics. Was
Mm,
when George Bush was elected for the second term,
mm.
I knew there was going to be a lot less funding in the arts, so I decided, well, we need to bring the only arts funding that was going was to artists who were already well established or
Yes,
dead,
yes,
like Chuck Close, who was alive at the
yes,
time.
yes.
Uh, that year, the year was, I believe, 2002. that year, excuse me, that year there were more grassroots nonprofits formed across the country in reaction to our new president as communities began to realize that we need to take care of ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
And I had just moved to Harlem 2 years earlier, and so I was like, okay, well, we need to bring our artists together. So I created the Harlem Open Artist Studio Tour, and it was a weekend on which anybody could come, and we printed a map with about 100 artists from 99th on the east side to 158th on the west side. That was a Dingham McCannon, and we just all got together and opened up our studios and spaces and galleries and shared our work, and it was yeah, that was a lot of fun. That was great.
Mm.
Unfortunately, I couldn't maintain doing that
Mm-hmm.
and the family and full-time teaching
Yeah, yeah.
and my art. So,
All right. Well, you know what? This was great learning about, your artwork, your background, what inspires you. And we're looking forward to seeing your piece, which will be in Morningside Park,
right.
correct?
Yes, so there are three staircases that transverse Morningside Park
Mm-hmm.
around 128th Street. There are three sets, and it's the top of the second set of
Okay.
staircase. The easiest way that I've been able to explain it to most people who are asking me, who I've been telling.
All right. Well,
Yeah.
thank you so
Oh,
much.
you're
And we're
welcome.
going to wrap this up right now.